After Fred VanVleet suffered from continuous small injuries as a result of playing so many minutes for the Raptors this season, one thing was very clear is that this team needed a backup point guard, but there just wasn't one on the roster. But that can change in this offseason. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the 2 perfect free agent signings the Raptors can make this summer. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On Amateur Hour Sports, we give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. So if you're interested in seeing that, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You can help us on our road to 9,000 subscribers. We are so close to the milestone. You can help us get there, and I promise you will not regret your decision by subscribing. But let's get into our content for today. 2 free agent signings the Raptors can make. And wow, Amateur Sports, we are in off-season mode now, talking about potential players coming into the team, what those players can bring to the team, why the Raptors need them so much. Because this season, it was very telling right from the start of the season that we needed a backup point guard. For about the first quarter of the season, maybe even a little bit less, Delano Banton provided that extra little bit of depth in that position, which was very beneficial to the team. Fred VanVleet was playing an extraordinary amount of minutes, and having a 46 overall pick who was giving you value was an absolute win and an absolute steal from the draft. But Delano Banton quickly started to fade off, wasn't really providing us much, and a lot of DNFs started to follow. Malachi Flynn was a player coming into the season that Raptors fans like myself really expected to take a jump, but he just did not quite get there this season. I mean, I'm starting to lose a little bit of my patience with Malachi Flynn because he's just not showing those developmental signs, and we've got Delano Banton, who I think is a pretty good ceiling, but neither of them are players I can trust in the backup position for the Raptors next season. And Fred VanVleet, like, the injuries are the story. Like, if Fred VanVleet does not have to play so many minutes throughout the season, so many minutes at an all-star level, I don't think he deals with all of these injuries. You know, he had the knee injury that was bugging him for a very long time. The hip flexor started to act up in the playoffs. And it wasn't really a surprise. Halfway through the season, myself and many of the Raptors fans claimed he's going to start to get some injuries, no doubt, as a result of playing all these minutes, averaging above 38 minutes per game. He just cannot sustain that many minutes, and it eventually caught up to him. The Raptors, unfortunately, didn't really have the roster construction this season. I mean, to be fair, we weren't supposed to be as good as we were this season, but now it's time to address the problems with the roster. Now is time to address 3 significant things that this team needs in the offseason. I've spoken about it in a video already. I said that this team needed a true center, just somebody to help us out with some rim protection. This team needs a catch and shoot threat, and also it needs a backup point guard, and we are going to address the backup point guard right now. We got 2 players for you in this video. Second one is the one I am much more excited about the possibility of signing, so make sure you stick around for that player. But the first player that I want to discuss in today's video, a former Raptor that I think would give us a real boost next season, and that is DeLon Wright. His contract has expired with the Atlanta Hawks, and I believe that the Atlanta Hawks are a team that is going to want to bring him back, and I believe he likes being an Atlanta Hawk, but the fact of the matter is DeLon Wright just doesn't have that big of a role with the team. He probably would have expected a bigger role this season. I mean, a lot of his playtime came when they were dealing with a lot of COVID problems, players were missing, so I believe that DeLon Wright deserved a little bit of a bigger role, and I think he'll expect to get one. The Raptors are a team that can offer him that backup point guard spot, and I think he fits in very well. Again, a former Raptor. We liked having him on the team, but while he was here, we drafted him 20th overall back in 2015, and, you know, he was a good player, but we had Kyle Lowry and we had Fred VanVleet coming off the bench, so he was a third-choice point guard. He was probably going to leave at the end of his rookie contract. We ended up trading him to Memphis in the deal that brought in Marc Gasol, a very necessary trade to go and win that NBA championship. And DeLon Wright has been pretty good since then. He had some good spells with different teams. Last season with Atlanta, again, if you look at the stats here, I mean, nothing that impressive. I think it's a little bit unfair, but, you know, let's just go through the stats here. He had 4.4 points per game, 2.4 assists, 2.9 rebounds on decent shooting for a point guard, 45% from the field, quite good of a three-point percentage at 38%, and above 85% from the line. That's decent numbers. I think it's a little bit unfair because he was only taking about 3.5 shots per game. In the season before the one that just happened, he was actually posting similar numbers in efficiency, in fact, a little bit better, and was averaging 10 points per game. So he is a player, if given that backup role, he can give you 8 to 10 points off the bench. He's a nice combo guard at 6'4". He can give you that two guard. He can give you that one guard when Fred VanVleet is on the bench. I think he really does fit into this team. He already knows Toronto. He did well in Toronto the first time. We just didn't really have the room for him at the time. Well, things are different now. He's a better player, and the team really does need that backup point guard. DeLon Wright, I expect at 30 years old, it's a little bit of a difficult situation here because, he could be looking for something where he maybe needs to prove himself a bit, but he also at 30 years old is probably looking to cash in a little bit more. I think as a 30-year-old, you can expect to give him maybe 2 years plus a team option. I think that could be worth about $9 to $10.5 million. If it's in that range, I'd be looking more towards the lower side of that to sign DeLon Wright. Don't think there's really going to be a ton of teams trying to bring him in, but I think that there is value in that contract. There is value in bringing him in. The Raptors, I get we want to prioritize a bit of development for Delano Banton, but this team is good and they need to work on getting better. I just don't have a ton of confidence in Delano Banton getting to the level where we can rely on him as a backup point guard next season. I'd love to be proven wrong in that endeavor. I'd love him to prove me wrong and get in that spot. But ultimately, I think we need a backup point guard. DeLon Wright offers great efficiency, good playmaking, decent defense with his size, knows Toronto. I think it's a good fit. But as much as I like DeLon Wright in that backup point guard role, there is another player that I would much rather bring into this team, and that player is Tyus Jones. Doing well for the Memphis Grizzlies. In fact, I think he's done very well for the Memphis Grizzlies this season. Tyus Jones is a name that I've heard amongst a lot of Raptors fans who want to bring him in, and for very good reason. At 26 years old, he's probably looking towards entering his prime, and he wants to sign a contract that gets him through his prime. He fits in perfectly as a backup point guard, maybe a little bit undersized, which fans might not like at about 6 feet tall, but the stats, I think they prove a lot for this player. Again, doing so well with a team that is the 2 seed, the Memphis Grizzlies. He averaged 8.7 points per game this season with 4.4 assists, 2.4 rebounds, and again, good shooting from the field for a player of his size, 45%. Great three-point percentage at 39%, and does well at the line just under 82%. That, along with the fact that he is a pretty good defender, especially for his size. This is a player that is definitely reminiscent of Fred VanVleet, which, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. He can, at times, if needed, move to the two guard. The Raptors have been able to operate with 2 point guards. I don't know if that's a theory you want to employ a ton, but Tyus Jones does fit in very well with what the Raptors have constructed here. Good playmaker, good shooter. He does give you, again, a little bit more of an outside threat. Not that catch and shoot guy I want to add to this team, as I mentioned earlier in the video, but definitely a player who brings in a ton of value. I would really, really like to bring in Tyus Jones this season. The problem is he fits really well with Memphis. He is a UFA. He's 26, but he fits really well within Memphis. I know Memphis are going to want to bring him back, but I also know there's probably going to be quite a few teams who want to acquire Tyus Jones' service. So there might be a little bit of a bidding war. I think a fair price for Tyus Jones in free agency, you're looking between $10 to $11 million. You're probably looking towards 10.5, I would say, as a value for this player. And I think for a 26-year-old, you are going to have to give him 4 years. I would say best case, you can maybe get a 3-year plus a team option worth around 10 to 11, maybe a little bit backloaded for the player. But I think that's a fair value. I think the Raptors could really benefit bringing him in, but I also think there's some other teams who could benefit from bringing him in as well, especially the Memphis Grizzlies. He's doing well with the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are doing well with his services. They're probably going to be the front runner to bring him back, but if the Raptors can give a little bit more money without overpaying, Tyus Jones fits in really well with the team. Or if Memphis decides to go with maybe a little bit of a different route, Tyus Jones maybe doesn't want to be second fiddle to Ja Morant, who does command so much of the usage on that team. Lots of different questions available. Nonetheless, this is a UFA. You can throw him an offer, and I think he fits in very well with the team. I know there's a lot of other Raptors fans as well who want to bring him in. These are just two of the guys I have big interest in bringing in. If we can bring in one of those guys, I think that would be very essential to this team. There's probably just another few out there, but these are the two I identified as very good candidates to fill in the void for this team. Again, I like Delano Banton. I like Malachi Flynn, but Malachi Flynn, I'm growing a little bit impatient. He needs to get to the next level. In order to do that, he's just got to start knocking down his shots consistently. Hasn't really done that in 2 years. Something's got to change for him if he wants to get in that spot. I wouldn't be upset to bring in that backup point guard, kind of disregard Malachi Flynn as sad as it is, and prioritize developing Delano Banton into a bit of a better player. I just think at this point, you need to give Fred that backup guard. Delano Banton is just not quite there yet. I think he does have a ceiling that, would fit in at the minimum a key bench player for this team, but just not there quite yet. respectable, not necessarily a bad thing. It's a 46 overall pick. You got to work with him developmental wise. But the reality is, like, the Raptors want to build off this 48 win season, bringing in a point guard that is going to help out Fred VanVleet and help out the rest of the team, especially help out the scoring with the bench unit, which I think is going to be key to improve the bench for next season. I think that is necessary going to next season. Maybe not the most necessary thing to bring in, but hey, these guys aren't very expensive. They bring a lot of value. Let's see if Masai Ujiri can make it happen. So what do you think of these two players? Do you think the Raptors should bring in a backup point guard? Do you like my two? Do you have your eyes on somebody else? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Please drop a like to let me know that you enjoyed. When you like a video such as this one, it lets YouTube know what type of people want to watch this video and will recommend it to other people who have similar interests to yourself. So by liking the video, it gives me a little bit of extra exposure, and it's super simple for you to do. And if you're new to this channel and you want to continue to see all of this great Toronto Raptors content, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Again, we are getting so close to 9,000 subscribers. Would really appreciate it if you joined AmateurHour Sports, the Amateur Hour Army, and I promise I'll keep you entertained all off season with Toronto Raptors videos. We'll see you again next time for another video.